Welcome to Deer Feet. I'm Renee.
And I'm Jess.
And we're the Deerfoot Sisters. This week we're going to be talking about creativity. Any thoughts on creativity, Jess?
I just wanted to warn everyone that in 20 minutes my alarm will go off. But I don't want to turn it off because I don't want to forget to turn it back on. So.
I mean, you could just... Okay, that's fine. Thanks for the warning.
So if you hear like birds and music, it's just my phone. Don't freak out. And that clicking is the washing machine.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of noisy. We're in this old house, so sometimes sounds come through. And the washing machine's being very loud. All right, so like I said, this week we're talking about creativity. Before we get started, we just wanted to remind you guys to download the Podbean app. We still have not set a date for our live stream, but it will be forthcoming soon. So if you haven't downloaded the app, you can do that. It's Podbean, Podbean. So if you download that app and get all set up, then when the live stream comes, you'll be ready and you won't have to worry about it. All right? Okay, so we're going to start this week with just talking a little bit about creativity, what it means to be creative, ways you can become more creative, things we like to do to be creative. I consider myself a pretty creative person. Do you, Jess?
I don't know.
You don't know what you think?
Sorry. Oh my gosh. I honestly don't think I'm that creative.
Interesting.
Okay.
You make up new words like okay.
Being creative means like coming up with many answers to the same question, essentially.
Right.
Or different solutions to a problem. I'm sometimes creative, but I think I pale in creativity compared to others.
Interesting. So that's also interesting that you define creativity in the context of problem solving. A lot of people just, when they think of creativity, just think of like artistic creativity, which is like obviously the idea of creativity is like you're creating things. But in your mind, you're thinking, oh, you're creating solutions to a problem or answers to a question. It's a very like scientific kind of method of thinking of it. But it is true, and creativity is necessary in most fields. And to be a good problem solver, you do have to think outside the box and be creative. But also it could just mean, making content that's new and original and using your imagination. So those are all like different examples of creativity. You can think of solutions to problems. You can draw a piece of artwork. You can create a multimedia presentation for work or just for trying to convince someone to take you to the Grand Canyon or whatever it is. My phone keeps turning off. But do you think... Now, you say you pale in comparison to the creativity of others. So you think you don't really have an innate talent for creativity?
I don't know about that. Like, I write poems. I don't know if this is too early, but I just think sometimes, like, I'm not that creative.
Like, do people describe you as creative? Others?
Some, I guess. I don't really know. I'm trying to find this book. So, it might be something... Oh. So anyway, when Renee and I were preschool teachers, we went to like a PD one day. Mm-hmm. And we met this woman, and she wrote a book called Teaching Creativity. And I'm trying to find it, but I might not be able to find it because it was like so long ago. But then I designed like a PD workshop for our other staff. Mm-hmm. Based on it. So that's kind of where I came up with that answer, because the woman talks about how we stifle children's creative thinking when they're young, and so they lack the ability to be like innovative problem solvers.
Right.
Because we've told them, and it's through simple things like when your child's coloring a picture, saying something like, oh, mice aren't purple, they're like brown or gray, and like
right.
Making them be uber realistic that you're like, or she was even saying like, oh, a child could look at a flower and like say, oh, that kind of looks like this, and you would be like, oh, well, that's actually this, and you're thinking, oh, I'm teaching them what that is, but you're also stifling their creativity. And so like trying to find ways to like teach them about what it is, but then also encourage the creative side.
Right.
So, anyway, and then she said that it basically is a skill that, like, employers are looking for.
Right.
So.
Yeah, employers definitely do value creativity, and it is a skill. So you can be innately creative, and probably it was fostered in your youth or whatever, but also most kids are pretty creative. Most kids are pretty creative, and some people maintain that creativity throughout adulthood, while others maybe lose some of it. But, which is the case with a lot of things that people are talented at, a lot of it is practice. So, like, if you are not super creative, you can engage in certain behaviors and habits that will help you to become more creative. So you can train yourself to be a more creative person. And there's a couple of different methods that we have here that we're going to talk about. So if you feel like, oh man, I am so beige, I need to think of a way to get more creative and colorful, you can try to do some of these different behaviors. So beige. Yeah.
Is that like a new phrase?
I don't know. It's just one I thought of. Like,
that's what I'm going to start saying to people instead of saying basic. I'm going to be like, you're so beige.
Yeah. I mean, well, some people love beige, like SpongeBob, but other people
I was
find it kind of boring.
surprised to learn that that was his favorite color.
What did you think his favorite color would be?
Probably like purple or something.
Yeah, or like pink, like Patrick.
Probably orange.
Huh. I wonder if... Well, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so some methods that you can use to try to become more creative. The first one is become an explainer. So do you have an idea what that means, Jess, I guess?
Could you explain that to me?
Yes. So basically, I read a couple articles that were talking about methods for training creativity. And this one came up... I can add them in the description. So this came up... What? Why are you rolling your eyes?
Will you?
Sure. I said I can. I didn't say I will, but I can. Okay. So maybe I will, maybe I won't. Anyway,
stay tuned.
This first one was saying...
I already read the description.
This first one was saying, thinking about people who are really creative in their field, like Albert Einstein or someone. They have to have a really, really strong foundational knowledge of what they're talking about. And the reason being, if you have to constantly stop mid-train of thought to, like, look up whether or not you know information about something, you're going to kind of lose that creative flow. So they said become an explainer and talk people through things, because when you're able to do that, obviously it means you know and understand the content knowledge well. Also, if you hear a new concept that's, like, really interesting to you, a lot of times when you're... you just have a feather? When you hear like, they were saying, okay, if you hear a TED Talk or, like, a podcast that's super interesting, a lot of times you feel really confident that you understand what they're talking about. But in reality, it's just the confidence of the speaker kind of bleeding through to you. And then if you were asked to summarize it afterwards, like, you might realize, oh, I actually don't know what he was talking about. Or I don't remember. Like, I didn't actually know it. But if you train yourself to, whenever you hear, like, a new idea or new concept, to try to explain it to yourself afterwards, then you're gonna just know it on a better level and then be able to think about it and kind of grapple with it in a different way. So that was, like, the first step that they said, which I think makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I guess. And then it was kind of interesting to me because I was like, oh, as, like, a teacher, I wonder if this comes through on my students. Like, how, you know, you always say to your students, like, do you get it? Or, like, do you understand? And they're like, yeah. And they seem to get it. And then they don't. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's just, like, since I know it so well and I'm talking to them about it in this way, they really do feel confident that they know it. And then they're like, oh, wait, I actually don't know it. You know? So it's like, that's kind of interesting.
That's why you should use some apps.
Yeah.
Like Pear Deck. Have you heard of Pear Deck?
I mean, you've told me about it.
Have I? I don't think I really
You definitely mentioned Pear Deck because I was like, what a weird name. What kind of pears?
Like...
The eating kind?
Yeah, the fruit. Pear Deck is essentially... an app that you can integrate into your slides, and you can get responses from students. Okay. So I think
I mean, I don't really do, like, notes that much or something, you know, so, like, slides.
When are you saying do you get it? Don't you do that when you're lecturing or discussing something?
Well, like, when we're doing any type of activity, because, like, a lot of times they're learning through the doing, like, through inquiry and stuff, so.
Okay, one thing my advisor told us that, like, I always do, basically, or that makes life a lot easier, even when you're doing, like, an inquiry-based thing, is to have a driving PowerPoint. So do you have slides? Like, do you present Because even just having, like, your norms, or you're like, remember, here's our criteria for what's a good model or what a good argument looks like or whatever, and you, like, always have it posted up, and then you're like, and then it's just, like, a bajillion slides, but it's like, question, think, pair, share, let's bring it back. Okay, now you have 15 minutes to do this or whatever, you know, like...
Yeah, I don't usually, but I mean, depending, like, in some of the activities we do, when we do, like, modeling, I do have one that's, like, you know, set the parameters of your model, ask questions, you have 5 minutes to ask questions, and then, like, we'll go through and evaluate the questions or whatever, so, like, yeah, I guess I could make those for more.
Because then you could incorporate those check for understanding things.
Right.
Because I know they're like, oh, do a thumbs up or whatever, or, like... 1, 2, 3, like on a scale of how much you get it or understand it.
Right.
But if you actually did some kind of thing like that, you could more...
Yeah, that's true.
Easily address.
And I mean, it's like, I do know when they think, it's sometimes you can tell when the kids are like, yeah, and then you're like, no, I don't think you actually get it. But it's just interesting to think about, like, where that's coming from. That maybe they really do feel confident that they understand it, and then only afterwards do they realize, like, oh, no, I actually didn't. True. So it's just kind of like an interesting thought process. So
when they're like, yeah. You're like,
Yeah, exactly. So the next approach that you can try to become more creative is to practice openness. So they say a lot of times people who are, you know, stifle creativity, who are not creative, are ones who are not open to new ideas. And a lot of times people will reject ideas simply because they're new without actually evaluating their merit. And it was interesting, a suggestion it gave. What? To do that?
I'm just being silly.
Oh. So, a suggestion they gave is, like, let's say you're, like, a business person and someone comes to you. I don't know the business world. I don't know how it operates. But if you're, like, a business person.
What's his name? What's Princess Carolyn's boyfriend's name again?
Judah?
No, the business person who does business.
Oh, Vincent Adultman?
Oh, yeah.
So, let's say you are a business person and someone comes to you with a proposal of, like, how to expedite something in your company, make it better. And you're just like, that's not how we do things around these parts. Yeah. Then you're not going to understand that this could actually be valuable. Just because it's new, you're going to write it off. So the suggestion they gave is to practice basically exposure therapy. So it's like, read the idea or the proposal, but do not engage with it in any way. Put it aside, and then a day later go back and reread it, because when you're rereading it, you'll have a familiarity that will kind of trick you into thinking this isn't a brand new idea. I've heard this idea before. And then if you engage with it in that moment, you're more likely to be more open to it, which I thought was interesting.
That's always true. Like, this reminds me of just, like, dealing with people. Mm-hmm. And when you have, like, an argument with someone and they react, like, super strongly. Right. And then later they're like, they kind of just come, like, back, like, I realized I reacted really strongly and it's actually not that bad of an idea. Right. Or whatever. Weird when that happens at your place of work, but it does sometimes.
Oh, like when people say it's a terrible idea and then they're like, oh, I was wrong, we should try it? Yeah. Has that happened to you?
Yeah, like, I was thinking of a specific example that happened at a place where we worked. Mm-hmm. And one person was really set in her ways. And we were like, okay, we want to change things. And she kind of, like, freaked out. Mm-hmm. And then threw essentially a tantrum. Mm-hmm. And then realized later, like, oh, actually I was, like, reacting really strongly to change. And, like, realized that...
Was that person our boss?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying it was our boss. I was like, interesting. I don't really remember specifically what you're talking about, but you can tell me specifically about it.
It was one of our peers.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely true. Like, it does happen because it's human nature to be comfortable in your environment. And, yeah, and then sometimes you realize, like, but our environment is terrible. Like, even if we're comfortable, like, this is, like, the culture of our workplace, or, like, this is how things are supposed to be done here, or, like, this is how they've always been done, but, like, these are bad. So, like, we need to change them. Also, but it is really hard.
It's like, with the whole, like, MAGA thing and, like, people then asking, like, when was this country great? Or, like, the whole idea of, like, people getting really annoyed with technology. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that, like, technology is always great or there aren't issues with, like, people always being on their phones and not, like, connecting in a real way. But, well, people wouldn't listen to this podcast. But, like, people idealize the past.
Right.
And they don't realize, like, okay, like, sure, back then there weren't phones, but there also wasn't, like, plumbing.
Well, depending how far back you're going.
Like, some people are like, oh, I wish I could live in, like, Victorian England. I'm like, oh, I don't know if there's
and, like, die when you're 35.
But, like, you know what I mean? Like, living in, like, they're like, oh, it'd be so cool to live in, like, the 1700s. I'm like, so, like, if you were in a city where it was, like, completely disgusting, smelled horrible, you literally threw your feces out the window, like, that's gross.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I'm like,
yeah.
Sure, it sounds fine, but if you were actually there after having the modern comforts, you wouldn't like it so much. Right. Also, like, if you're a woman, forget it. You didn't even have rights.
Or a person of color.
Right.
Like, obviously, it would be terrible. So, yeah, I did listen to a podcast once that was talking about how nostalgia is like the worst feeling. Because, well, they said it's the most toxic emotion. Because it's, like, it's such a lie. And then people, like, think, oh, it was so great back then. And you're like, but was it? Like, all these bad things were happening. And people were stifled in their, like, emotional journeys or whatever. Like, and, I wouldn't want to live necessarily in a time like that.
It's weird, too, because I feel like we used to go to summer camp. And we would go for, like, 4 to 5 weeks in the summer. And the one camp we went to was a 3-week camp, and I feel like we went just the 3 weeks, and then we did other stuff in the summer.
Yeah,
because usually summer's like 10 weeks, so
maybe we did 2
we'd go
sessions.
with our dad for like 2 weeks. No, we'd only did one session. Yeah, so we'd go to our dad's like 2 weeks. We'd go with our moms to the beach for 2 weeks, and then we had like 3 weeks of summer. I don't know what we did the other week or two, but whatever. But then we would go to this one Girl Scout. When we went to Girl Scout camp, it was like 1 week session, sleepaway, and sometimes 2 weeks. And I remember, like, every summer, the first week was always the best week. I don't know if that ever happened for you, but I was like,
I don't think that really happened to me.
I went a few years, and I was like, oh, I feel like, and I always, like, would find a good friend, but, you know, I was always like, oh, I feel like the first week is always the best, and then the rest of the weeks you're always just kind of like, oh, it's so much better last week. Or, like,
I don't think that really happened to me.
Better. I don't know, like, that always happened to me, and I was like, oh, the first week is always, like, the best one. And then the whole summer, you're, like, remembering that
because it's probably just, like, you're so excited that, like, any week that, like, any group you had, if you'd had it in the first week, would have seemed like the best, because it's, like, better than school, or, like, whatever else you were doing, so.
True, but, like, with lovers, like, you can look back, like, that's what I told our one friend who's young, I don't know if she listens. But she was seeing a guy when she was, like, 14, and he was, like, 23, so, like, creepy AF. Like, I'm thinking about, like, if our cousin were to do that, and I'd be like, that's so gross.
Well, you realize how creepy it is as an adult, obviously. But, like, as a teenager, you're like, I'm mature. And then as an adult, I'm like, ew, that's so skeevy. Like,
yeah, but we were, like, 19, 20-ish, and she's younger. And I was like, do not have sex with this person.
Yeah.
And they did, like, some stuff. But I was like, you think he's really good because you've never done these things before? But I was like, when you get experience, you're going to look back and maybe he's good, but probably he wasn't.
Yeah.
It's just novel. So it's like...
Right.
And it does feel good and it's nice, but it's like, he's probably not that great and you're inexperienced, so you don't even know necessarily what you like. But then she did later tell me, like, I'm grateful that you, like, convinced me not to sleep with him because, like...
Right.
You know, I'm glad she ended up, like... doing it with someone she actually loved and stuff, like, the first time, so she felt like that was a better experience for her.
Right.
But I mean, like, so there are times where you look back and you realize, like, okay, that wasn't good. And I think, though, in those kind of situations you can. But, yeah, nostalgia can be really tricky because you're remembering the positive stuff and you're forgetting...
Right, all the
negatives. And I don't think people should focus on the negatives, but it's, like, you also have to, like...
Well, you just have to recognize that it's not always what you thought it was. Like, you just have to kind of take it with a grain of salt.
True, plus also realize, like, that life is, it's done.
Right.
It's fine to
and,
be,
like, there's ways that you can, if, like, let's say you're, like, nostalgic for a time when people, like, knew and helped their neighbors. Well, that still exists. You just have to go to a place where that, oh, there's the birds. You just have to go to a place where that exists. You know, like, there are still small towns in America. That. Yeah, or, yeah, like, make that happen in where you live.
Because the kids I babysit for, they live on a cul-de-sac, and there's kids in almost every house.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, and there's kids down the street and kids across the street. They're not in the same grades. Like, they're younger.
Right.
But the kids all play together, and, like, you know, all the parents know each other, and they haven't lived there that long.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just, like, you can live in an area, and if you go outside and try to meet your neighbors, like, yeah, some people will think you're weird, but, I mean, like, there's no other way to really do it.
Right. And, like, I think when you have kids, sometimes it's easier to, like, become friends with people in your neighborhood and stuff, because they're obviously gonna, if they both have kids, like, they're gonna be together at school or have the same bus stop or whatever. It's a little easier. But yeah, I think that is something that people do crave, like, human connection. And I think that's where a lot of the nostalgia comes from, is they think, like, oh, back in the olden times, like, people just, like, helped each other. And I'm like, except they not always. There were still bullies and, like, bad people. Like,
and some bullies were, like, really violent. Like,
yeah.
Not to say that, like, emotional bullying isn't real and serious, but our mom recently told us that she was, like, bullied and that they would, like, beat her up and stuff and, like, pull her chair out from her, and kick her and, like, hit her. And I was like, what? I mean, I kind of laughed. I know that's mean, but I was like, that sounds so
It sounds so
cartoonish.
absurd. Yeah,
like, I was like, what? And where were the adults?
And
like,
that's, like, I know. And that's, like, when you, like, I feel like for so long when we were growing up, it was always, like, in TV shows and stuff, the bullies were, like, beating people up and, like, turning them upside down, shaking their lunch money out and stuff. And I'm like, that doesn't happen. But, like, apparently it did. So the people who wrote those cartoons and stuff or those shows were probably like, that's how I was bullied. But I'm like, no one really, like, beats each other. Like, I'm sure, yes, people still beat each other up and some kids do, like, bully each other physically. But for the most part, I don't feel like that's what bullying is nowadays.
No.
So, like, it's just, it was interesting for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Nostalgia is tricky. But I do kind of, at times, I do get it. Like, the world is a crazy place now. So it's like, you just have to find the positives.
But it was a crazy place back then, too. Like,
yes,
it's always
exactly.
been a crazy place. So it's like, you just have to realize, like, some stuff has gotten better, some stuff has gotten worse.
Right.
But I think the problem is you have to just move forward. Like, even, like, with people who are, like, obsessed with, like, high school.
Right.
Like, you find that's, like, like grown adults who are just, like,
still in their glory days.
Obsessed with high school. And it's like, you're an adult now. Like, you're 45 years old. Like, that was 30 years ago. You need to, like, remember it fondly, but not, like, live in there.
I know. I think I, like, said something to my students about, like, high school, and I was like, yes. I was like, oh, about my Scholastic R pin, because my student, like, I found one while I was helping him clean out his backpack, and I was like, oh, Matt, you could put it on your lanyard. Like, I have mine. And he's like, is that from when you went here? I was like, yeah. I was like, so, I mean, I guess I was, like, 15 years old. And they're like, no, you weren't in high school that long ago. And I was like, well, yeah, if I got it when I was a freshman, like, that would be 15 years ago. They're like, I always forget you're 30. I was like, I know. But those were, like, my seniors. So it was, like, kind of funny. Because I'm like, they know how old I am, but they, like, still think I'm not as old as I am. Or they don't realize.
When you first started, did you tell them how old you were? You were, like, 24?
I was 23 my first year, like, the first half of the first year. I think I told them if they asked, but it's not like I came out like, hi, guys, I'm 23. I'm your teacher. Like,
no, but some of, like, the people in my program ask, like, would you tell the kids? Now, obviously, like, I'm older, and I look a lot younger, so if anything, they're like, whoa, we thought you were, like, 24. And I'm like, thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, some people are like, I don't think I would tell them. I'm like, why?
Well, I get it. Like, if you're teaching 18-year-olds and you're 22, like, you're kind of like, oh, it's kind of weird.
True, if you think they're, like, crushing.
But, like, I teach 14 and 15-year-olds, so, like, and I always have. So even being 24, I was 10 years older than them. Like, almost double their age. So I was like, it's a lot older.
Plus, no one's crushing on me, so let's be real.
You never know, Jess. You never know. Don't sell yourself short. Teenagers might have crushes on you.
Okay.
All right. So next approach that you can try if you have tried these first two of being an explainer and practicing openness and you're still not feeling very creative, a quick thing you can do is get physical. So,
it's inappropriate.
Sarah likes that. So, just
Were you
like
moving your hands?
I was, moving her ears.
Oh. Maybe she didn't like it.
Well, her head's like right in my crotch, so it was like I'm petting her a lot right now. If you couldn't tell, maybe I just look like I'm massaging my legs.
I want to just mention two things before you talk about that. We were at the dog park the other day, and Sarah was meeting her friends, and she was literally putting her nose, like, up this other dog's butthole.
Not up its butthole.
It was
dog buttholes are pretty small, and dog noses are pretty big.
The one that was humping, his tail was up, and his butthole was, like, out.
Gross.
And she was, like, in there. And I'm just thinking, like, that is why I don't let her lick me, and especially anywhere near my face. And people, if you do that, it's freaking disgusting. And please stop. It is so gross. Second of all, why do people let their dogs off leash on busy streets or in residential areas or in cities? I don't freaking understand this. If you're a person who does this, please stop. It's stupid. I came home yesterday, or Friday. Renee already knows the story because I bitched about it to her, but I was, like, really blown away that this lady was doing this. It was just baffling to me. My friend and I went to the movies, and he dropped me off. We got out of the car. She was like, the dog was pooping on her yard. I don't really care. She picked the poop up, whatever.
I mean, yeah, you can't. I don't hate when we're like, don't let your dog poop in my yard. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Like,
well, usually I have them walk on the other side, like the space between the sidewalk and the street.
Yeah, but sometimes they just go where they're gonna go.
Well,
like, they gotta poop.
This dog wasn't on a leash, so of course it's gonna go where it wants to go. So then I'm like thinking that the lady would keep walking, but I like get out of the car and she was like watching us, which I thought was like weird. And then she's standing there kind of like in a ready stance, like ready to like
grab her dog.
Yeah, because her dog was off a leash. The leash was around her neck.
Or on the lady's neck.
Yeah. Like draped around her shoulders, not like around her neck, but you know what I mean. And the dog was off leash. And like the street we live on is busy because it's connected to a main street, and then there's a street that runs parallel to Main Street that doesn't have lights and stuff. So people zoom down our street to get to that other street, and they go really fast. Like the speed limit's 25, but they're going like probably 40.
Yeah.
They're going super fast.
And it's a narrow street.
And it's a lot of cars. Like it's very busy. And it's just like, why are you letting... I just don't understand. If the dog, like, I'm like, what are you trying to prove? That your dog is so well behaved that it walks right next to you? Guess what, lady? If your dog walks right next to you, then putting a leash on it wouldn't matter because the leash would just be, like, slacked.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why... Like, what if for some reason your dog decides that they need to go after something and they run into the street and get hit by a car?
Yeah.
Does that make you feel good about yourself? Do you feel like you proved your worth by having your dog off leash? Like, it's so freaking dumb. And that happened to our friend. His dog died because of that. And he was
on leash, but he was just not holding the leash very tightly, yeah.
Oh.
So the dog just ran and he dropped the leash.
She knew not to run in the streets. Like, guess what? They're dogs. And sometimes something excites them.
She chased a goose.
Yeah. It could be an animal. It could be another dog that's tempting them. Yeah. Whatever. Like, food. You don't know what it could be. I just don't understand that. It is so stupid to me. It's like having a kid in a car without a seatbelt on. It's like, why? Why?
Yeah, like, I can see if you have your dog off leash, like, in your yard and you're not, like, living on a super busy street. Or if you're on, like,
a hike or something.
Yeah, if you're out somewhere in nature and you want them to, like, be free roaming around. But, yeah, when you're, like, on a very busy street, it's just dumb. Because, like you said, there just are factors that you don't know. Even if your dog has never done it before, that doesn't mean they won't do it at that time. Like,
yeah. Plus, the point is you're not pulling them. Like if they're going to stand next to you anyway... The dog doesn't know the difference. What? The weight of the leash is too much for their neck? Like, I mean...
It's weird.
Come on.
And also, like, I wonder, maybe she was, like, watching you because maybe she doesn't clean the poop up. So maybe, like, the fact that she saw you, maybe she was trying to be like, oh, is that the people who live here?
No,
and
she picked it up, like...
Oh, she picked it up before?
She was getting the bag ready to pick it up as we were coming down the street. And then he, drove a little past the house to turn around because there was, like... a truck or something, so then he drove a little past. So she was like, maybe she was like, who are these people? Why are they stopped right there?
Yeah, could be.
But because like it's my grandma's house and we know her. She's like a neighbor down the street. But I really wanted to I wanted to call the cops and report her and have them come give her a ticket because I was like, I don't really want to get in a fight with her, but I was like really tempted to like say something to her because I just think it's so dumb.
Well,
but I was like,
maybe she'll listen to this podcast.
All right, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
And then we'll be back.
This week's podcast is brought to you by the Beefy Boys. Just three cool dudes hanging out, talking about sports, video games, music, and whatever else they feel like. Find them at their website, www.beefyboys.com. Also, where you find your other podcasts, iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, all the regulars. The Beefy Boys, the best show on planet Earth.
And we're back. Hope you guys enjoyed our commercial.
Wait a second. Never mind.
Okay, so we were working on some of our practices, and I was about to tell you guys the third one before we got a little derailed with Jess's
Public service announcements.
admonishment of those who walk their dog off leash.
Or let their dogs lick them.
Yes.
Or share food with their dogs.
Okay. I mean, you can share food with your dog if you don't like...
Not like when people are like, have some of my ice cream, and then go back and lick it.
Yeah, no, you can just put it in their bowl or something, or drop it into their mouth. Anyway, so the third option that we were talking about is getting physical. So to do this, and I think a lot of people know this, like they talk about like you have the shower thoughts or whatever.
What?
Never heard of shower thoughts? Like when you're thinking about a problem or like something you're dealing with, and then you're told sort of like don't think about it, and that's why you always like come up with like good ideas in the shower, because you're kind of just like, you know, you're not really focused on it. You're just like focused on doing your shower routine or whatever, and then like you think of a good idea. Because sometimes getting physical or moving, it's going to do a couple things. It's going to take your mind off of the problem that you're focused on, because you're going to be engaging in this other activity. And it also gets blood flow going to your brain, which is going to help you problem solve. So sometimes like disengaging with a particular idea actually helps you come up with the solution. Because as you know, our brains are amazing, so they're always working on things. So even if you're not focused on something, that doesn't mean you're not thinking about it somewhere in the recesses of your brain. So by doing physical activity, you can get moving, you can get thinking, you can get the blood flowing, and the creative juices flowing as well. So that's one thing you can do. So if you're feeling like stuck, like if you're a writer and you're experiencing writer block, maybe just go out and do something physical, take your mind off it, and then come back, and maybe you'll be ready to get back to the creative process. Another thing you can do that we kind of mentioned is asking questions. So we've talked about before how asking questions is a skill and a practice. And it's hard. It's so weird. Why do you always do that? Why do you always do this weird snap claps?
I can't really snap. In my class, that's like a thing is like, you know, you like snap when someone says something you like. So it's like everyone does
That's just really weird, I feel like. It's really bizarre. But anyway.
It's like when someone says something you agree with, you like snap.
Okay, well, thank you for agreeing with me.
But I'm really bad at snapping, so.
Yeah. So that's what she was doing, was trying to snap. But yeah, so we talked about with the preschoolers and how creativity gets stifled, and a lot of it comes from asking questions. So when we do practice with this, I always tell my high schoolers, like, try to pretend you're a kindergartner and like think of as many questions as you can about this thing. Because like kindergartners, they just ask questions all the time. And that allows for divergent thinking, which we've already talked about on this podcast, so we don't have to go too much into it. But basically just ask yourself good questions and practice it, because it helps you approach something from a new perspective. And even if the questions are silly, they might lead to a better question ultimately.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why does your phone dim so fast?
I don't know. Probably because it's like dying. I don't know. Maybe it's in low power mode. Now the last thing to do is to embrace boredom. And this, I know, is definitely true. Oh, thanks. Why do you have this open on here? Oh, because I thought you had it open on the computer. So embracing boredom means don't always be engaged with technology or something else. Like, allow yourself time to just sort of not be stimulated by outside sources. And the idea here is that when you're bored, your brain will naturally seek out stimulation, and that will help you become more creative. Because if you have to stimulate yourself, that sounds weird. If your brain needs to stimulate itself,
Renee brings up masturbation again.
Then you're going to just be thinking of different ideas, something interesting in your brain, right?
Wait. So it means, like, don't even listen to music? No, see, your phone just turned off quickly.
I don't know why it does that. So, yeah, like, it's different for all different people. Like, music might be something that's okay, but it's kind of saying, like, if you're feeling like, I guess it's kind of saying, like, allow yourself to have downtime where you're not specifically engaged in one activity. So then you can, if you're like, okay, during this, the one lady said she did, like, a 48-hour, like, device cleanse. So she didn't use, like, any tech devices for 48 hours. And then she found herself, like, sketching and, like, painting and doing things that she used to love to do but hadn't really done in a long time. And in reality, a lot of times we think, oh, I don't have time to do that. But, like, in the time you waste scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or something, you could probably, like, sit down and draw a sketch of something or a doodle or like color in something, you know, whatever, anything slightly creative that could kind of lead to more creativity. This I know is definitely true because as I lifeguard, you know, that's like when I basically write all my songs because it's like very boring. So I find a way to entertain myself by like singing to myself, and then I write songs on stand, and I'm still paying attention to the pool and everything, but like in my brain I'm entertaining myself because it is very, very boring otherwise. So
Nice.
Yeah, so that's something you can do. And another thing I think that's great with this is if you have kids, this is a great way to kind of connect with your kids. If you can do something creative together, like painting or writing a story together, or really anything, building something, even if it's like building a Lego set or building a marble track or a pillow fort. You know, like those are all creative things, and it shows your kids that they don't need technology to have fun. And it just allows you to connect with them sort of like on a more, like in a more organic way.
Yeah.
If you're just like doing these fun things, that's the things your kids are gonna remember when they get older. Like, oh yeah, she would always, you know, sit on the floor with me and help me with my Legos or whatever it is. So I think that's kind of a nice thing you can try to do with your kids, is be creative. So those are 5 practices you can try. I guess people who are naturally creative do sort of already do these things. I don't know. What do you think?
Probably.
Right. So, if you're not someone who's inclined to be
I don't know
creative,
about getting physical, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe not that one, but that's just a way to kind of get it going. So you could try those if you want to try to be more creative. And also remember that being creative doesn't mean you have to produce a masterpiece. Like, you can produce something that's kind of dumb or bad. It's okay. Like, the creativity is just the making. It's the creating. So it doesn't have to be perfect, and it will get easier the more you do it. And if you're doing art specifically, you'll get better the more you do it. So, you know, just find something that you like. And if it's stressing you out a lot, maybe like that's not the medium you should be using. Like, try something else. Maybe like you're like really want to write a book, but every time you try, you just like totally freak out. Maybe like do something different. Maybe write an illustrated book, or I don't know, do
Just
a podcast.
Even journaling or something.
Yeah, anything. So you don't have as much pressure on yourself. All right, so now what is your favorite approaches for being creative? Like, what do you like to do in your everyday life that's creative? Anything?
Probably
Poems?
just writing.
So, like, how often do you write poems?
Mostly only when I feel emotions. So not very frequently.
You don't feel emotions very much?
I'm just kidding. I'm like the most emotional person I know.
Yeah.
Who's the most emotional person you know? Me or mom? Or someone else?
I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up, I feel like. I feel like you've gotten less irrational.
Yes, I have emotionally matured.
Yeah.
I've developed my emotional intelligence.
There you go.
Yeah. Which, like, part of that is being able to mitigate your own emotions.
Right.
Brava!
Yeah.
Intelligent in all sectors.
But,
now.
like, if you were to quantify it, like, how many poems have you written? Like, do you write poems every month, every week, every year? Like,
I wrote, like, a bunch of poems when Jean broke up with me. I wrote a poem last night about another friend that I have.
So do you ever share these poems?
Yeah. I share, like, some of the poems, I share them with our friends.
1.
2.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of them, they're just really stupid. They're not on my phone. They're, like, just super rough drafts that are, like, really bad. That it's just, like...
They're just not ready to be shared?
And I'm just, like, I'm like, I'm so emotional. And I'll, like, go and, like, write some poems.
And it's so interesting. Like, I feel like...
Poems.
You know, obviously, like, I, like, write my songs or whatever. And I feel like...
But you don't write them down.
Yes, I do. Sometimes, or I record them. But I feel like sometimes when you, like, like, say you're, like, a songwriter.
Sometimes when you shit.
And you share your songs with, like, people who don't write songs. They're kind of just like, oh, nice. And I'm like, I was like, maybe hoping for some, like, feedback. Like, so I think lately I've been thinking about how, like, I would like to try to, like, connect with other, like, amateur songwriters to maybe, like, write songs together. So I could be like, like, we can work on this together. You can help me. Or, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's just kind of different. So, like, if you reached out to, like, a poetry group or something, then you might actually, like, get the more of the feedback you're looking for, because if other people are engaging in that same activity, then it's like, you know what I'm saying? You get just a different kind of perspective.
Yes, you can probably find something on Facebook, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Reddit, of course, if you really want.
Right.
But I think that you should go to that music place that I told you about, because at all different levels, so first of all, you could learn how to play piano or guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And then that could help you if you actually wanted to, like, write music to your songs.
Right.
But also, you could work with those people on developing your songs.
Right.
And
but I just don't have money for that. So
well,
I feel like I could find people who just want to do it as a project.
But I'm
and then
saying
just
if
do
you
it
wanted
together.
to learn, it might be easier. But, like, you could look into the cost of it, too, and then see if that's something that, like, someone could get you as, like, a present or something.
Right.
If you see how much it costs or whatever. But the other thing about that place is they have bands. Like, the girl I babysit for, her teacher wanted her to get involved with, like, the band for her age group.
Mm-hmm.
And she's, like, essentially, it's a group of girls in 3rd to 5th grade or something, and they're, like, a band. So they, like, actually perform music together and stuff. But the girl didn't want to do it. I think she just is, like, too busy with other stuff. But
yeah, that's cool.
So I think they have it for, like, all ages and stuff.
Right.
But that place just seems cool because they are talented, but, like, kind of, like, relaxed in a way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like, that would be fine. But also, I just feel like if I could just find people who do that as, like, a pet project, it would be good, too. Like, the same kind of idea, you know? Because it would be nice. And, like, it would kind of motivate you, obviously, to, like, do it more if you're, like, doing it at a set time every 2 weeks or whatever. Like, and then because it's kind of like at this point.
But you have to commit, because you know people who could help you. You're just not doing it.
Well, I don't know that they want to do it, really. You know, it's like.
Well.
So if I, like, found other people who definitely want to do, like, the same thing I do, then I could be like, okay, we both want this, and I don't have to feel like I'm, like, pressuring you because you're, like, my friend, you know? Like, and you're just doing me a favor.
True. You should look into it on Facebook or something.
So it'll be nice. Because then otherwise I feel like, it's like I make my songs, and then they just, like, nothing ever happens to them. They're just, like, made, and then they just sit there existing, and I sing them to myself, and no one else knows them.
Nothing happens to them because you do nothing with them.
But that's what I'm saying, is I need a good avenue for, like, doing something with them.
Okay.
So,
even if you just sent it, like, do you even send it to the people you know that are musical artists? Like, or at least have some background in music? Like, you show it to, like, Mom and me, and we're like,
That's what I'm saying, but it's like, I don't want to send it to, like, people who are good musicians, because if they're bad, like, then it's awkward, and then they probably feel like they have to be nice to me, so I want to find other people who are, like, new amateurs like me, so that we can do it together.
You're just sitting there together making a whole bunch of garbage music, but you're all like, wow, we're doing this. Yes. And then, like, you show it to someone after you've worked so hard on it, and they're like, this sucks.
Right.
They're like, I would have told you 2 years ago, don't
or
bother.
if it's, like, someone who's not my friend, so then they don't feel obligated to be like, oh, yeah, this is great, I'm going to work on this with you. But if they're, like, a stranger, they could be like, hey, this really isn't that good, but they could help you. I don't know, it's just, like, a different relationship. Because I feel like if you were like, okay, I have this song, and I want you to help me write music to it, then the person, if they're, like, your friend, they're just going to be like, oh, okay, and, like, do it, even if they think it's bad. But if they're, like, a stranger and you're in the type of environment where you're critiquing each other's work, they could be more forthright and say, oh, yeah, we need to fix this and this and this, and then, like, you don't feel bad because it's, like, you're not embarrassed because you don't, like, know them as well, and they're not, like, they're going to be more truthful, I feel like. I don't know, that's just how I feel about it.
Then how are you going to meet these random people, Renee? I think that you have to either go to a place, like go to a school.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. I have to, like, look on Craigslist or, like, Facebook, like, find a group. I'm sure there's groups out there that do this. Like, I just have to find them.
I just think they'd still be nice.
Yeah, nice, but I'm just saying not, like,
I think you should just go to, like, a teacher, and they would probably be more critical.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, sir, shush. All right, so other ways I like to be creative, too, is I do like crafting.
I was going to say something. Oh, well. Can't remember now.
Okay. I do like crafting, and I do like how there's all those places now where you can, like, go and they'll, like, teach you how to paint or, like, make a sign, whatever. Because that's nice, because it's, like, you're creative, but you don't, but the products look nice afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's, like, I like those kinds of places. I don't go a ton because they're kind of expensive, but I went to that sign place, and I think my signs are, like, so cute, and I was really happy with them. So I'm like, oh, this is, like, something that I made.
Shush.
Signs for what?
Remember your coworker was like, signs for what?
Oh.
Because you're like, I made some signs, and he was like, signs for what?
Did he say that? I don't remember.
Hey, baby. Come here, Sarah Bear.
Anyway, so yeah, that's like fun. And it's like obviously you're using like a stencil, but you can still be creative even when you're like using a stencil or coloring a coloring book. Like you don't have to make everything from scratch for it to be creative, is all I'm saying.
True.
So
I mean,
that's a
like,
good place to
even
start.
with the Cricut has a lot of things you can do for crafting.
Right.
That's fun.
Yeah, like definitely if I had
DIY projects around your house of like stuff that you can do, and there's like so many. I mean, like some of this stuff is so weird that you can see like people like making out of like really cheap materials, but I'm like, okay,
like
it's,
what? What do you mean?
I don't even know, but like sometimes it like it's like some kind of like holder or something, but it's like the amount of work it takes to like turn this water bottle into something, and it doesn't even look that great. But some stuff can look really nice, like especially if you use like old tin cans or.
Right.
They're probably not tin, but you know what I mean? Like canned goods, and then you can turn the can into something nice. Like, that's cool. Other stuff like that you can
and just like even just like decorating for the holidays. Like there's so many ways to be creative. But I just also feel like there's a lot of pressure on people with like Pinterest to like make things perfect. And it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can have character, as we say.
True.
So if you're like trying things and they don't come out looking exactly perfect, like that's fine.
Even just like puns and stuff, like we did like for your shower, like some of the puns we did with the goodie bag stuff or the favors. What?
Yeah, they're just saying puns are creative.
Yeah, making puns.
That's true. So if you can't think of any other way to be creative, you can just make some puns.
Why are you so bitchy about it? Why are you so snobby about it?
I'm just saying it was just kind of funny. I don't know. It just kind of came out of nowhere.
Jerk.
What was that? Oh, someone's calling.
Spam risk.
Oh, okay. All right. So what's something you made that you're like really proud of?
I don't know. Nothing.
Wow. You've never made anything that you're proud of? What about my speech at my wedding? Weren't you proud of that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'm trying to think of
other
other
it's
projects.
Hard to think of like projects you've done.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, like, I guess I could say that I'm proud of those t-shirts I made for the cruise, but you'll probably say that's dumb, because those puns weren't even funny.
Were there puns on it?
J. Cruise Getaway? I mean, yes.
Okay, J. Cruise Getaway, yeah. So there was one pun, basically.
It's two puns!
How?
The crew part and the J part.
No, it's one pun. It's J. Cruise.
Crew is one pun,
Yeah.
but even just having the cruise getaway is another pun.
Okay, got it. Because it's the cruise, apostrophe S.
Yeah, so
and
it sounds like cruise.
No. Hey, get down. Stop.
Sarah Bear, come over here again. You're being so nice.
She's like getting antsy for some reason.
I said sit.
Yeah, that's true. So if you guys have any creative projects that you're really proud of,
so
we
you're
would
not proud of them?
love for you to share them with us. Anything, pictures, poetry, songs, whatever. Puns that you thought of that were really good. You can share them with us to our social, and we can share them out. If you are comfortable, we'll let people know who they're from. If you want to be anonymous, also fine.
What's a project that you're proud of?
I don't know. Well, I'm proud of those. I'm proud of those signs that I made. I don't know, like I'm usually pretty proud of most.
Guess
of
I'm proud of my tie dye.
Yeah, there you go.
My tie dye.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny too. I was thinking the other day, like, I don't know, like this topic gets me thinking how you're always like saying things to me like, come up with the name of this because you're creative, and I'm always telling you like you can't just like tell me and expect me to like create on the spot.
Well, you know what, Taylor Swift can. So
well, good for her. Like sometimes I can be creative on the spot. Like I can think of like whatever, like a freestyle song or rap.
I'm not saying think of it on the spot. I'm not saying I should be like the next thing that comes out of your mouth should be the best solution to this issue of a pun that I need right now. I'm saying you never heard of brainstorming out loud? You never heard of free thoughts?
Why are you biting me?
Like,
go to your room.
What I'm saying is, if I say, think about this, you could then be like, and start thinking aloud, and then we could bounce the ideas off each other.
I guess that's just not my personal creative process.
Well, it would probably work, because it's been shown to work. So maybe you should try it, and it might help you.
Maybe. Hang on.
So yeah, Renee wrote this song. Well, she's written many songs, as you know, but she wrote one called I Picked Him. And it's also a pun because it kind of sounds like I picked him.
Anyway, yes, my personal creative process, though, is, like, I need to hear of an idea, like, a few hours or days before, because I need to ruminate on it and think about it. And, like...
How do you know?
How do I know what?
Have you tried?
Yes, I can.
You haven't even tried it, so let's see.
I can brainstorm and come up with ideas.
So now when someone tells you to do that, to just think aloud and whiteboard your ideas, brain cloud your ideas, or whatever it's called. Word cloud, I don't know.
Like, I can think of things on the spot, but there's a lot of pressure when you do it that way. And I feel like I don't generally get my best ideas, like, right there on the spot. Like, I need some time to think it over and be like, oh, yeah, this is
I've never
better.
seen you do what I'm saying to do.
Well, that's not true, Jess.
When?
I don't know.
Concrete
but to brainstorm, you need additional people.
Yeah, so I'm saying...
Yeah, but I'm saying when you're like, oh, think of a creative title, and I give some ideas, and you're like, and you don't give any ideas, then that's not really brainstorming. That's
it's like I'm the cat shooting your ideas down. You have to keep
That's not helpful.
Anyway, we should try it.
Maybe.
We should see, and we'll see if it will help you.
Okay, next time you need a good idea, we'll think about it.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to move to our weekly segments. First up is Weight Watchers, which I still have not been to. Jess?
Well, have you been on the scale here?
Well, I go on the scale every time I get weighed for plasma. I'm about the same as I've been.
Oh.
But it's also, like, usually I drink a lot of water, so.
Well, are you going to go back to Weight Watchers? I mean, WW, because the meetings work.
I'm going to start going back probably next week.
I've heard it works if you work it.
Yeah.
I went this week, and I had not met this meeting leader before, but he thought I was really good.
What does that mean? He thought you were good?
He was like, girl, you're good.
Like a good person?
No.
A good WW member?
He was like...
Good at coming up with puns? Clarify.
I shared something about holding yourself accountable, or, like, being able to look back and see, like, where you've struggled or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Advocating for promoting the idea that you should try to come even if you aren't being great.
Right.
Because then you can at least see where you are. You could bring yourself back in. But even if you don't, even if you keep gaining, you'll at least be able to know. Because that's like,
I also feel like just sometimes you, like, have these ideas in your head of what works for you, and you just project that will be what works for everyone.
It does work for everyone.
But you don't know that. Like, some people could go and see that they've gained and just be really discouraged and then never come back.
Yeah, but I'm saying, yes, that is what happens. What I'm saying is keep going back even if you feel discouraged. And
yeah, but I'm saying if they're so discouraged that they never come back, then it's obviously not going to work. So if they know to themselves, oh, I know I've been off track. If I go and see a big gain, then I'm going to feel really bad and I'm going to never go again. But if they say, okay, I'm going to do really well this week and go back, and then it could just be like, that's like how I am.
That never works.
That's not true.
Case in point.
It's not true, though, Jess. Like, when I do decide to go back, I don't want to usually go back before I've worked out or, like, tried.
Which is stupid.
Or maybe, but it's just, like, a personal decision. I don't know. Like,
it doesn't make any sense. You're essentially negating your work because, like, let's say you gain 10 pounds and then you lose 8 pounds. But it's just going to look like you gained 2 pounds.
Yeah, but I would still feel mentally better about it. No, I would still feel mentally better about it. Well, personally.
It doesn't make sense. So, anyway, you're wrong.
You're so judgmental.
Anyway, so I was saying something, and I wasn't saying it like that. I was just saying, like, a lot of times it's good to come even if you think you've seen a gain, because then you can look back and see what might have happened to, like, trigger that gain or whatever. So I said a few things, and then he was like, oh, if you've got 20 more minutes, you can get up and lead this meeting. Mm-hmm. So I was like, yeah, I know.
Okay, so what's your weight? Like, let's get to the meat here.
Why are you such a jerk? My point was that I could be a great Weight Watchers leader.
Maybe, if you're less judgmental.
No, I could be really great. Anyway, I was down 0.6 for a total of 26.2 pounds. Snaps, please. No, like, try to snap quickly.
That's as quick as I can snap. I can't snap
Do it
well.
more like a regular snap follow. Yeah.
Stupid.
You're not a great snapper either.
I've never claimed to be one. Plus, I also, like, snap with my third finger, which is really weird. Tim's good at snapping.
Oh.
That's probably why we're bad at it.
Wait, you snap with this finger?
Yeah. my
I
ring
can't snap
finger.
with the other fingers.
Me neither. I feel like it hurts. It's like,
I know.
just like breaking
No,
my
I'm
bones.
just like rubbing my fingers
I feel
together.
like a cricket. Anyway, okay. So, yeah, I haven't been back to Weight Watchers, but I do plan on going back. But it's just been really hard. But, it's neither here nor there.
What's been really hard?
Being motivated. I've been super tired. And I had, like, a really, really severe vitamin D deficiency, which I was like, is this actually the cause of my symptoms? I don't know. But then I did take the supplement, and I do feel a lot better this week. Might be psychosomatic, might not, but either way, it's affecting me physiologically, so what's the difference, really? So, that's something that might help me now.
I understand.
Also, it's been getting lighter out, so that always helps me a lot, too. Longer days, I mean.
All right, so now we're going to talk about what's popping at the movies. So I'll first talk about Downhill. I went to see this movie on Friday, on Valentine's Day.
With your Valentine?
Yep. I loved it. I thought that it was really well done, very funny, interesting, and kind of like a pretty realistic look at what like a marriage that's like I don't say old marriage, but a couple who's been married for a long time, like what that relationship could look like. So
Stop.
pretty interesting.
You're so sassy. Yeah, that looks good. So if you don't know about that movie, because I feel like a lot of people haven't heard of it, it's Will Ferrell. It's Colin Farrell and Will Ferrell. Anyway, it's Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I don't know where that came from.
Darrell.
Well, that's because I knew someone named Darrell who spelled his name like that, and I never met a Daryl who spelled his name that way. I only met a Darrell who spelled his name that way. Anyway, so Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
I guess you can say.
What?
I was trying to say Renee with the word syllabus, but like
syllabus. Just stop talking.
Syllable emphasis.
Okay, so
Syllabus is
two...
how you say syllable emphasis.
Okay, so
you know what
Sarah,
she wants.
Stop. So those two actors are in it, and they're, like you said, married. They're at this ski resort, and basically this is all in the previews. There's like an avalanche that they are planned because they have to like
telling them the plot.
I'm just giving them a synopsis.
Oh.
It's in the previews if they haven't ever heard of the movie, and like a lot of people hadn't heard of this movie. So there's these planned avalanches to like clear the ski slopes, and basically they didn't realize it was happening, and they thought it was a real avalanche, and they're like, oh my god, it's coming to us, and then like the husband basically grabs his phone and like runs away and like abandons the family, and they're like, you abandoned us, like you're a bad person, like why would you leave your family? So then they like have like, I guess, a reckoning for their marriage, but it's like a dark comedy.
Yeah,
so it's not like super dramatic, it's like funny.
It is.
So
Okay.
that looked good. I haven't seen it, but I do look forward to seeing it.
You saw.
Did you give it thumbs?
Oh, I'd give it like probably a 2 thumbs up, a thumb and a half
Nice.
up. It was very good.
Good. When I saw this movie, it was called Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. But I have learned that they've since changed the name to Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, because it was kind of a flop in the box office. It's one of the lowest opening for that type of movie in that franchise. So they were like, oh, I guess it's because people don't realize this is a Harley Quinn movie. But I'm like, except she's like on all the posters and in every preview. So I feel like if you've ever heard of this movie, you would know it's about Harley Quinn, but whatever. I never saw the Joker, but I thought this was okay. You didn't really need to have seen any of the other movies to have seen it. There was enough background provided. It was interesting. It was fine. It was like very typical
Joker, like with Joaquin Phoenix?
Or any of them. Joker,
Oh.
Suicide Squad, I don't know. You don't have to have seen any of them.
But I don't know if that's in the same universe.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think Suicide Squad is.
Yeah, I think so. But the other Joker one, I don't think it's the same.
Well, it's the same universe. I don't know if it's the same, like...
Well, is it the same universe? Could be a
I don't know.
parallel universe.
Okay, so
Same
I don't know where that
characters.
one fits in. I haven't seen it, so I have no idea if that's in there. But whatever. You don't have to have seen any of the other movies to see this one. It stands alone. And it was very graphic. You probably wouldn't like it, Jess, because there was a lot of, like, very gory fight scenes. Like, she'll, like, jump on people and just break their legs and stuff. So it was... I could just imagine you being like, oh, the whole time, like, as you do as people fight. But if you're into fights, there was lots of them. And, yeah, it was interesting. It was fine. I'd probably give it, like, meh thumbs or, like, maybe half a thumb up because it was entertaining, but it was nothing amazing. Okay. If you like superhero movies, you'll probably like it.
And then we saw Sonic.
Yes, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Is it called Sonic the Hedgehog or just Sonic?
I don't know.
Anyway, I loved it.
I thought it was really good, too. Then Finn's best friend Colton saw it with his mom yesterday, too, and they, like, posted a picture. And then Tim's like, oh, Finn and I just saw it, too. And I was like, what am I, chopped liver? I was like, I was there, too, jerks.
What about me? What about Momly?
I know.
I can't believe
that. But they enjoyed it, too.
Is he trying to get with Colton's mom?
No, I don't think so. But anyway, so it was really funny, honestly. Like, I wouldn't say excited to see it. I thought it was going to be cute. Like, I know Finn wanted to see it. I was like, it'll be fine. I'm not a huge personal fan of Jim Carrey. Like, generally, I feel like his comedy is kind of annoying. But I thought he wasn't too over the top, so, like, it ended up being fine. Like,
it also fit into the movie.
Yeah, it fit into the character, because he's supposed to be, like, super weird. Yeah. But I thought it was better than I had expected and very, very funny. It had a lot of funny jokes, and I think most people would like it.
I agree.
Had a lot of, like, quick humor.
There were a lot of puns.
Yeah, it was very creative. And Sonic was kind of creepy, but not super creepy. Not like before.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
It was cute.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I'd probably give that one 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
For a kids movie. Really good.
I agree.
Probably one of the best kids movies we've seen in a while.
Is he wearing gloves?
I don't know. Maybe. Probably.
Because it, like, looks like he's wearing gloves, but then it looks like he has something on under the gloves.
I don't know.
Because he does, like, at one point change his shoes.
Yeah.
And so you say, like, okay, he's wearing shoes and socks. But, like, the gloves, I never really understood why he was wearing gloves.
I don't know. Maybe, like, electrocutes people otherwise. And it was kind of funny because in the beginning when they're talking about, like, bringing in Jim Carrey's character, who's, like, Dr. Robotnik, they call him, like, Dr. Robot Nick. And I never really thought that was, like, his name. They're like, Dr. Robot Nick? And I was like, oh, because I'm pretty sure it's, like, Robotnik is, like, one word, but it was just funny. So that was enjoyable. And they definitely set up a sequel, so I'm assuming there will be a sequel. I mean, I don't think it's, like, been officially confirmed, but they really set it up at the end, so it seems like there probably will be another one.
Based on my small sampling of going to the movies twice since that movie opened and the theater being packed both times, I think that they'll probably have a sequel.
Yeah, I think Tim said it was the highest opening weekend for, like, a video game movie. So I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Also could be because I feel like there haven't been that many kids movies out recently, too.
Yeah.
And it's like President's Weekend, so, like,
it was a good time to come out. Yeah. That's good, though. I really liked it.
All right.
Definitely recommend that one.
So, is that it?
I think that's it for this week.
All right. You can
call to action, get creative, and share with us on social media.
And download the Podbean app so you can check out our live stream where you'll be able to call in if you have the Podbean app. If not, you can't call in. I think you'll still be able to listen to it after we publish it, but
it won't be live.
It won't be live, and you won't be able to interact.
Participate. Ew. Okay, why'd you end on a burp?
It's my nature.
Okay.
So, all right.
Great week, everybody.
We're the Deerfoot Sisters, and we're